So when Kimi Antonelli arrived in Monza as one of replacements to George Russell, the pressure was ferocious. This super talented and unexperienced teenager created a tension that we have never felt in practice before, and while many people knew what qualities he provides, everyone still thought about the main question: can he deliver? Okay, let's answer the question this way. During the first qualifying for FIA Motorsport Games in 2022, Kimi has been involved in a huge accident where he broke the scaphoid bone. Fortunately, this happened right after he had already put himself on pole position, so despite the immediate need of surgery, he decided to ignore all medical advices and careful fodder just to finish a Sunday race with immense risk. However, he already thought about that and probably made sure that no one will get to him again. When all 5 lights disappeared, Kimi launched perfectly and with such a precision that no one has come even close to the first corner. Despite the shearing pain that came every time Kimi hit a bump or took a high-speed corner, he didn't fall back even by 1 position. Kimi led every single lap of this race and he has quite literally humiliated the field with a 7-second difference to the rest of the grid. This chaotic event tested his character and also proved that even in a race full of Formula 4 talents and all circumstances going against him, he can deliver. So let's jump back to that Monza event. Everyone deeply knows how tense it is to drive on home soil with tifosi on grandstands. Italy didn't have a champion since 1953, and every time there's a new Italian face that could just potentially be fast, the whole country expects the best. But Kimi didn't have time to deal with that pressure, because only in the first practice he's allowed to drive. Mercedes wanted to truly know if he has the pace to rival the best, so they decided to give Kimi the fastest tires they had in disposal. So the ordinary Monza practice suddenly felt like a race. Kimi immediately drove the fastest lap of the practice, making a statement that he doesn't joke around. And naturally, he wanted to go even quicker the second lap. On the first glance, the decision of making Kimi a Mercedes driver almost doesn't make a sense. Mercedes in their colorful history in Formula 1 never hired a driver younger than 22, and it sounds even more confusing when they were waiting guys like Carlos Sainz, El Matador Fernando Alonso, Alex Albon, or even a freaking Max Verstappen. Their piloting drivers were already champions, and if not champions, then highly experienced and proven characters. So who is that mysterious, super fast, super talented Kimi Antonelli, and is all of this only a big gamble and a big mistake by Mercedes? Andrea Kimi Antonelli, whose full name is a bit of a story itself, didn't come from a very rich family, but his dad knows about motorsport more than most of us will ever do. Marco Antonelli is a well-respected sports car driver and also a successful team owner of Antonelli Motorsport. This meant that Kimi was always around racing cars, plus it's not that hard to fall in love with racing when your dad is driving this. While many people assume he was directly named after the Iceman Kimi Räikkönen, it's actually the nickname of his uncle, who happens to be a massive fan. It's true that his childhood shows some similarities with original Kimi, you know, that quietness, introverted and focused character, but that's where the similarities ends. Marco originally wanted Kimi to become a football player, but if you give an option to kids about kicking a ball or driving a go-kart. So the young Kimi started driving in the series called Easy Kart. In Easy Kart, all karts are almost identical and they remove the advantage of having better equipment, and Kimi shined in those competitions. He quickly started winning races and championships, and by the age of 9 he had already delivered an incredible drive from near the back of the grid to win a final. However, there was something much more important happening in the background, and Kimi didn't even know about it. Okay, let's make one thing clear. All Formula 1 drivers hire dozens and dozens of scouts, which they spread around racing tracks across Europe, and their only goal is really just point out the most promising drivers. But one of these scouts has a special instinct. Gwen Legru and his scouting team were present at various karting events across Italy, watching hundreds of races. And one day, they saw Kimi. Legru first met Kimi at 11, and while his results in that initial observation were solid, they were not spectacular, often finishing in P3, P4 or P5 territory. The ice-breaking moment, however, came in 2019 when Kimi absolutely destroyed the field in WSK Euro Series and WSK Supermasters. In his rookie season, he finished a respectable 5th in FIA World Championship, which has a huge prestige in junior karting. But Lagru's team looked for more than just raw speed. They looked for human qualities, that certain mindset with maturity and humility, and Kimi displayed all of these qualities. From the moment Mercedes team was absolutely convinced about Kimi, they came first with pulling the trigger. The 2025 has been a rollercoaster of emotions in every single way. The initial races were a struggle, and George Russell as Mercedes #1 consistently pushed the maximum from the given car every race. The paddock had whispered about quiet Kimi Antonelli and maybe expected a bit more. No one really knew if he was truly ready to fill the massive gap behind Lewis Hamilton. And that's why I want to talk about Brazil Grand Prix. Kimi came to this race with not a lot of pressure on his shoulders, because we had a championship battle between 3 other drivers. From the start he has been remarkably consistent, and this confidence carried over into qualifying, where he secured a spot on the front row for the first time in Formula 1. The Saturday sprint race was a 100 km, and having qualifying P2, Kimi knew the start is gonna be extremely hard. George Russell was peeking right behind him, waiting for any mistake, but Kimi executed a great launch. Throughout the race, he demonstrated patience that always put in doubt previously, and he started creating a lead that he carried to the finish, and that was essential for the Sunday race. Kimi once again started very well, but the start itself was much more chaotic this time. Other fights on the track bring safety car, and then the red flag, which I can imagine being a little nightmare for Kimi. He had to execute the 3rd perfect launch this weekend, because no one is more valuable than the drivers on the inner side of the first corner. Kimi still made a solid launch for the 3rd time, but when he tried to defend position by closing the gap on the inner line, he made a mistake, closed it too much and bounced off from Piastri. Fortunately, and by a huge miracle, Charles Leclerc on the outline was the person with worst sacrifice. The most critical phase, however, began after the final pit stop, when he found himself under intense pressure from Max Verstappen. Now, on paper, Red Bull should have easily overtaken Mercedes, but we know Kimi. He timed his energy deployment perfectly, saving the boost for the long uphill battle towards the finish line. It was a tough mental fight for more than 10 laps. However, on the lap 71, Kimi Antonelli crossed the finish line 2 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. He didn't only secure 18 points, he mostly showed a real strength and potential for something much more interesting. Let's put Kimi Antonelli this way. On the first glance, he always seemed to me as a little bit robotic. You know, always nice about his team, he didn't show too much, he made a couple of soft jokes, but other than that, he didn't appear to me as an interesting character. But I also have a strong feeling that this is exactly what Mercedes wants, and wait till he's gonna be a little bit more mature, which is funny, because Mercedes is also responsible for making crazy moves like this one.
Formula 2 has its first driver announcement for 2024. Andrea Kimi Antonelli announced as a Prema driver for Formula 2 for 2024, skipping Formula 3, jumping straight to Formula 2 from Freca. And who best to discuss this one with me?
Kimi Antonelli is that one of 1,000 kids who was born in the right country, who had the raw talent and aggression to put it on racetracks, the one which was seen by the right people in the right time on the right place, and still being mature and humble enough to attract millions of fans. All of these important moments and actions happened in the life of Kimi Antonelli, which is an incredible luck, but in the same time a mesmerizing pressure. So I'm curious what we will say about Kimi Antonelli 5 years from now. Do you think he's gonna be world champion one day, or he's gonna utterly fall in Formula 1? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you soon. Bye.